This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this half hour with this, a human check engine light. That's what one military doctor is calling a next generation technology that could ultimately stop a future pandemic. It's actually a tiny hydrogel sensor that sits right underneath the skin. It was originally developed to help to treat diabetes, but for the Department of Defense, it's a way to stop the spread of infection in its tracks. Our national security correspondent, Caitlin Burke, is on the story.
Investment in this kind of technology has been going on for years, all with one goal: to protect the soldiers protecting us.
What we do is we say, well, the science is interesting, but we're translating that. We're translating that into application and benefit. And it's something, frankly, I think the Department of Defense does really, really well. We can see science, but we say we have mission. We have a national security mission.
In March of 2020, the USS Theodore Roosevelt made headlines when more than 1,000 sailors on board tested positive for COVID-19. For 2 months, the outbreak kept the ship and its crew of 4,800 sailors from their mission of defending our nation. Dr. Matthew Hepburn says he's devoted his entire career to prevent that from ever happening again.
What we want to do is detect an infection as early as possible, before someone even spreads it to another person, to try to prevent that infection in the first place so that it never happens. But if it does, we detect and treat. And what we also might want to do is then make sure everybody else is protected.
That dream now appears possible thanks to this tiny hydrogel biosensor. Placed under the skin, it measures what's going on at a tissue level. For example, the amount of lactate in your body.
The level of lactate at the tissue level is a really good indicator that someone is starting to get sick. It's one of those things that we see go up pretty early in severe infection called sepsis.
The sensor doesn't identify what infection you might have. It's more of an alert. Hepburn compares it to a check engine light.
Like a check engine light doesn't say there's a problem, you're out of oil or something like that. It just says there's something wrong. There may be something wrong with your engine, so take a closer look. So the idea of the sensor is check engine light goes off, then you need to do some more specific tests to figure out if you have COVID or something else wrong with you.
This next generation technology was invented by Perfusa. The private sector company created it to help treat diabetes. Now, through a partnership with the Department of Defense, the sensor has been developed for a number of other purposes. Besides detecting infection, it can also measure oxygen levels.
So you can think of like a pilot. You'd want to know tissue level hypoxia or low oxygen as an early signal that you're not getting enough oxygen to your tissues.
Currently in clinical trials, this, like all other vaccines and treatments provided by the Department of Defense, must get FDA approval. This one appears to be well on its way to that achievement. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Promoting religious liberty is a priority for America, but commonly used methods aren't effective in countries where governments don't have the support of their people. As Jennifer Wishon reports, in those cases, experts say the best approach is teaching people how to love thy neighbor.
When it comes to promoting religious freedom in fragile states like Afghanistan, Somalia, and Yemen, U.S. officials have to get creative. Punitive policies like sanctions can weaken already dysfunctional governments and further devastate conditions on the ground for people of faith. Take Syria, for example.
Armed actors have laid siege to towns and villages with sizable religious minority populations, defacing and destroying Yazidi and Christian shrines, and detained, prosecuted, and even tortured Yazidis, Christians, and other religious minority communities for their religious beliefs.
In some places, finding ways to facilitate peace can save entire communities.
State attempts to eliminate the presence of at least one religious group from the country have been recorded in Afghanistan, Algeria, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, China, Comoros, Egypt, Eritrea, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Malaysia, Myanmar, Pakistan, and on and on. You get the picture.
Experts say a deeper understanding of the culture and engaging with those under duress in country would make a tremendous difference.
We need to stop looking for English speakers, because oftentimes they're not the best representations of the communities that we're seeking to help in these countries. We need to look outside the elite.
Rural people, women who have a different understanding of who they think of themselves and how they think the world works.
Knowledge of the lived faith traditions, knowledge of the lived conflict, knowledge of what is in the way and what will help things get out of the way is all held within the communities.
Including how local cultures and customs mesh with religion.
We always say that a Christian in Lebanon is completely different, or to a large extent very different than a Christian from the United States or otherwise, even in the way he reads and he lives his faith.
The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom makes recommendations to America's diplomats. Commissioners believe these can make a real difference in the lives of people who face challenges in their everyday lives just because of how they worship. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Coming up, meet the Christians who helped to rebuild a church from the rubble of the Syrian civil war. We've got the story for you. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. A church destroyed by ISIS has risen from the ashes in northern Syria. It's a sign of great hope for Christians and other minorities who were persecuted under the radical Islamic regime. CBN's Chuck Holton brings us the story from Raqqa, Syria, that you won't see anywhere else.
Before Syria's 10-year civil war, thousands of Armenian and Syriac Christians lived here in Raqqa, and many attended the city's two main Christian churches. Then ISIS seized Raqqa and made the city its capital, forcing most believers to flee. Those who stayed faced brutality in the form of beheadings, crucifixions, and sexual slavery. Syrian democratic forces, backed by the United States, eventually defeated ISIS in 2017, opening the city to humanitarian relief. When the Free Burma Rangers first made it to Raqqa, the city lay in ruins. The former Armenian Church of the 40 Martyrs was just a shell of a building.
It is 4 February 2018 in Raqqa, and this is the remains of one of the churches in Raqqa, and our prayer is that it will rise again. Thanks for praying.
God answered those prayers, and now a new building stands in place. American pastor Tay Pei helped get it done.
I am friends with David Eubanks, and he told me that he was going to Iraq and Syria. And I asked him if he had any needs. And one was particularly rebuilding the church in Syria. And that captured my heart, and I wanted to be part of that.
Tay's church raised $60,000 to help rebuild the church. This year, Tay got to come to Syria to see it be rededicated. Before ISIS took over Raqqa in 2014, there were about 150 families that used to attend this church. But now, there are really only about 12 believers left in Raqqa. But the church has been rebuilt, and with the help of the Free Burma Rangers and many people who donated money, today is a very special day as we go to rededicate this church to God and hope that He will send more believers to fill the pews.
The Lord be gracious unto you. The Lord will turn His face towards you and give you overflowing peace, joy, and love.
I'm very happy my wife
After many years, we can finally return to being Armenians. I feel like I am a new Christian all over again. Praise God. We now have a place to come and worship and make the sign of the cross.
This is the square where ISIS tank came down. You've seen it on TV, where they came down and did donuts in the tanks. This is it. This is the center of town right here. And this little sculpture right over my shoulder here, they used to put heads on that thing. Not that long ago either. So people here are very happy that ISIS is gone. Still, threats remain from terrorist cells operating in the city. This same night, a car bomb went off just a few blocks away from the church. Even so, residents here remain optimistic.
We are few in Raqqa, but it's something, a miracle for us to see us together again. We are 12 people, yes, but we are too much. We are power, we are strength, we have each other, and we will start again.
For their part, the Free Burma Rangers are continuing to help the people of northern Syria, bringing the love of Jesus in the form of food distributions and games for the kids.
God's love, God's love is deep and wide, is deep and wide.
All the village are glad for your come because you made their children happy and you support them spiritually.
The Rangers give God all the glory for what he's doing here.
That's how it was. This is how it is now. Thank you, all you brothers and sisters in Jesus in America that prayed this would happen, and people all over the world who prayed. Thank you. Look what happened. Look what God did.
From northern Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
It started with a prayer walk around the public school, and it's gone on to become a worldwide outreach. Thanks to the efforts of a single teacher, more than 1,500 public school libraries in 43 states have Bibles. Her nonprofit organization called Bibles in Schools has also extended to 6 other countries. Mark Martin brings us this extraordinary story.
Hi, my name is Hannah Salisbury, and I'm an elementary teacher in Virginia in a public school.
We first introduced you to Hannah Salisbury in 2019. A public school teacher at the time, Salisbury told CBN News that God put it on her heart to donate Bibles to school libraries.
I started to prayer walk around our school, and there was one particular day that I prayed that Jesus' name would be mentioned in the classrooms and hallways of our school. And little did I know that prayer got answered in bigger ways than I could have imagined.
Those bigger ways include the nonprofit organization Salisbury began, known as Bibles in Schools.
And God really opened my eyes to realize if we have this old Bible in our school, how come we don't have a more engaging Bible that's fun and that has pictures in it?
Fast forward to today to see the ministry's global impact. Salisbury says her organization has provided Bibles to more than 1,500 school libraries in 43 states. In addition, Bibles in Schools has reached 6 countries outside the U.S.
There's a pastor in South Africa, and he heard about Bibles in Schools from the 700 Club interview, and he said, I wanted to get started where I live. And he started donating it to a library, a public library, a preschool, and another school. And he's having requests, just like us. It's been just 2 years, but librarians are writing us back saying they want more copies because it gets checked out so much.
Here is Salisbury's office in her house. She says the need has been so great that she resigned from teaching to work full-time on Bibles in Schools.
I never pictured going full-time with this. You know, I was doing this because I saw God moving. I saw him working, and I knew I had to be obedient to what he had called on my life, and this is what he wanted me to do, and I could see the need.
Brief testimony of how the Lord has used Bibles in schools to impact our lives as a family and the children of God right here in Nairobi, Kenya.
Abijah in Kenya also learned about the ministry through the 700 Club. Kids in an after-school program needed the Bibles.
Almost all of them did not have a Bible. And I used to cry to God and wonder, how can I get Bibles to these children? As a stay-at-home mom now for the past 5 years, I really don't have a source of income yet, and I don't know what to do, but I need Bibles for these children. So it became a cry in my heart.
She reached out to us, and of course, my thought was, well, how are we going to get Bibles to Kenya? But we were able to partner with Bible Society, and her brother drove 3 hours to get the Bibles, and we donated 50 Engaging Bibles to those students that she teaches in the after-school program.
Amazingly, she responded. That gave me such hope, and now the process began, and the rest is history.
Thank you for the Bible.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Kids overseas aren't the only ones benefiting from Bibles in schools.
My favorite story in the Bible is when Jesus died on the cross for us, and that let me know how God loved us so much. It's easier for us to understand with that Action Bibles because most of the time we can understand the words, so the pictures can help us.
And they're also spreading the good news.
Have you been able to show your Bible to any other kids?
Yes, I've showed it to my cousins and my friends when they come to visit.
Plus, they understand the big picture of Salisbury's work.
I like how she put Bibles in the library because that's how people know that God is with us all the time, and that how kids can read more about God and then that he loves us so much.
The Bible is a living word, and it's active. So just get the Bible in people's hands, and God will do his work and work through his word.
Mark Martin, CBN News, Midlothian, Virginia.
They said he would never walk or talk, but he's doing that and more. Watch the heartwarming story of Cornell Cranham coming up next. He's a familiar sight at Virginia Tech home games. Cornell Cranham is the team's sideline assistant. Now, that itself is a miracle. Cornell was born severely disabled, and doctors said he would never walk or talk. So why did a young couple decide to adopt him is the question. Well, they say it was a God thing. Wendy Griffith brings us their heartwarming story.
In the early 90s, John Cranham, a young dentist, and his wife Kim wanted to start a family, but were having trouble getting pregnant. Then something happened. Kim worked with sick and premature babies at a local hospital and fell in love with one of her little patients, Cornell, a victim of his mother's drug use. Kim wanted to bring Cornell home, although John wasn't there yet.
And I had been to that unit. It was a very scary place to me. I did not like going over there. A lot of those kids, didn't ever leave. Miraculously, he started to take breaths over his vent one day, and then 2 days later, she found out he was now going to be moved to a home for profoundly retarded children. And that's when she kind of came to me one day and said, I think we're going through all this because we're supposed to bring him home.
John and Kim went through extensive training to learn how to take care of Cornell and clean his trach on their own. Still, doctors warned it wouldn't be easy.
I remember they said, he's never going to walk or talk, and he's probably never going to love you like a normal child would love you.
Despite the odds, Cornell thrived, but his severe health problems made his future uncertain. Shortly before bringing Cornell home, Kim discovered she was pregnant with her first daughter, Caitlin. Cornell and Caitlin became known as the twins.
All right.
Caitlin, now a dentist herself, remembers the playground moment she first realized she and Cornell were not the same color.
We were literally about to go down the slide, and he stopped, and he said, "How's he your brother? He's black." And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean he's black?" And yeah, so that we had a conversation when we got home that night with my parents.
As Cornell's physical and emotional development progressed, it became clear he would need several more surgeries to reconstruct his windpipe and remove the trach so he could talk and breathe on his own.
He stared death right in the face and made the decision to live, like fighting harder than I've ever seen anybody fight. And so I think that stays with him.
When Cornell was about 7, John decided to train for the Ironman competition, which includes a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and 26-mile run. Cornell, despite his own physical limitations, became his dad's daily workout buddy.
He literally rode his bike almost every mile that I ran. That's why I trained for that thing, even 20-mile runs. So that was special. So when I did it and I finished, he waited. He was right there about the half-mile mark and ran in with me.
John says Cornell's ability to give 100% without complaining, while always seeing the best in himself and others, is just something he was born with.
People say all the time, like, well, you taught him to be like that. We did not teach him to be like that. And that's sort of, I mean, part of the gift is I think he's taught me to be more like that.
Today, as he approaches 30, Cornell drives his own car, assists in his dad's dental office, is a huge Virginia Tech sports fan, and loves going to church.
I always pray every single night and pray in the morning on my drive to work.
How did that faith in God help you hang on?
I just kept fighting. I didn't want to die. You know, I wanted to live, and I wanted to inspire other people and give them hope and grace and, you know, the love of Jesus.
A few years ago, Cornell met his biological twin Ariel for the first time. Ariel was also born premature, but did not have nearly the health issues and was raised by her grandmother. Turns out Cornell and Ariel had been looking for each other for years, and thanks to social media, finally connected and have become great friends.
We look exactly alike. We're both kind of quiet.
Cornell, a baby who was never supposed to live, laugh, or love, has become an inspiration that reaches far beyond his family to all who meet him, including the entire Virginia Tech football team, who recently adopted Cornell as their sideline assistant.
So much fun. You know, the guys have interacted with me. The guys have always, you know, will come up to me, talk to me. And the fans have been my backup to everything, because they always see me every single home game.
You say adopting Cornell was a God thing. What do you mean by that?
So I feel like it was a God thing from the standpoint that it just was put in our path, and I think it was a little bit of a test to see if we would do it.
John says watching his son's incredible positive outlook and will to live, despite so many obstacles, compelled him to write The Cornell Effect, a family's journey towards happiness, fulfillment, and peace.
I look at our world right now, and I feel like we're spending all of our time dividing people by race and socioeconomic status and all this kind of stuff. And I look at how Cornell looks at the world. He just loves people. You know, he just looks at it as one great big adventure. What I want people to take away is I want them to look at their own lives the way he looks at his own life, which is just a gift.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.